Tonight, it's day of anguish in parts of the country as explosion at an illegal oil refining site in Niger State claims at least 18 lives. 4 bodies recovered after a boat mishap in Niger State, and church building collapses in Benue, killing 1 person. The Senate receives letter from the President seeking confirmation of 3 new ministerial nominees. Moves to stop first-term senators from vying for the position of Senate President and Deputy Senate President. Chicago State University releases the academic records of the president to the legal team of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to support his suit challenging President Tinubu's election. And 2 people have been killed in a shooting at a luxury shopping center in Thai center of Bangkok, Thailand.
On business news tonight, business activities in Nigeria improves for first time since the month of May this year, as it expands by 51.1 in September, and that's according to latest Purchasing Managers Index report from Stanbic IBTC.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, NLC and TUC suspends their planned nationwide strike for 1 month, following their agreement with the federal government and some measures after the removal of fuel subsidy.
We begin tonight with the deadly aftermath of illegal oil refining. At least 18 persons have been burned to death in an explosion at an illegal oil refining site in the Abia community in Emoa local government area of Rivers State. The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, which gave the casualty figure in a statement, explained that the victims were burned beyond recognition, while 25 others were rescued. A member of the community told Channels Television that the explosion occurred when one of the containers used for refining crude caught fire. According to the NSCDC, the site is said to be owned by one John Bodo, who reportedly sustained severe burns in the explosion. This is not the first of such incidents in the area, as there was a similar explosion in March this year, which left 12 persons dead. In another tragic incident, 1 person has died and another injured in a building collapse in Makurdi, the Benue State capital. The building is the auditorium of a Pentecostal church, the Dunamis Church, but the cause of the incident is yet to be ascertained. Meanwhile, Governor Hyacinth Alia of Benue State says there will be consequences as he ordered the evacuation of those living in the adjoining buildings and all those along the waterways to avoid multiple casualties as parts of a church auditorium still hang in the balance.
This is what is left of the Dunamis Church located at Mission Ward North Bank in Makurdi, the Benue State capital. The structure gave way in the early hours of Tuesday, October 3, claiming the life of the resident pastor.
Information was received that Dunamis Church, a branch of Dunamis Church in North Bank, collapsed and 1 person was trapped in the building. He was rescued but eventually died in the hospital. Investigation has commenced into the cause of that collapse, and whatever comes out of that investigation will determine the next step of the command.
Officials of the Benue State Ministry of Humanitarian and Disaster Management arrived at the scene to assess the situation alongside some professionals. After asking a number of questions, the team gave their preliminary findings.
It appears preliminary that it's a building that was not designed to carry this kind of roof. It appears the steel stanchions were introduced as a later thought. That is what we could see. We could see that there are openings in walls and then foundation columns introduced later. That is what I'm seeing for now. But we'll have to ascertain that from the design drawings.
It's very unfortunate that this has happened. Government is going to set up an investigative teams. The court, thank God, the chairman of Quorum is here, and we go back and set up a team to investigate and know the occurrence of, know the problem why this building collapsed.
Governor Alia visits the scene and reads the riot act to those responsible for the structure.
I give my condolences on behalf of the good people of the state to the pastor that met his death in this kind of a structure. So many things, virtually by even a lay person, would know that are not right. Someone must bear the responsibility. So we have to locate wherever the leadership of this congregation is, and then just to inform them that this is the order, because we need to save lives.
Meanwhile, the state government has directed residents to stay clear of the disaster area to avoid further casualties.
Meanwhile, the senior pastor of Dunamis International Gospel Church, Pastor Paul Inenche, has pledged immediate reforms in the church building projects going forward to strengthen all processes required for public safety. He gave this commitment while speaking with journalists after inspecting the scene of the Mission Ward branch of the church, which collapsed earlier on, killing the resident pastor, Emmanuel Baba, while 3 others escaped death.
It is a very, very saddening situation. Above all, everything that we have seen is the loss of a very, very precious life, very, very dedicated servant of the Lord. We feel the deepness of the loss for ourselves first, for his immediate family, of course, and the church he pastors, the body of Christ generally, and even the state as a whole. We feel very, 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 very saddened. And we trust that God will give all of us, including the family, the fortitude to bear the loss. As a ministry and as a commission, we employ all manner of due diligence in our procedures. And this we have done in several things we have done. But we believe that going forward, we are looking into in more detail the procedures and everything, technical details of construction, and trusting the Lord that this kind of thing will be forestalled in the future. In the name of Jesus.
An unconfirmed number of people have died in the River Niger after a wooden boat conveying passengers from Agwara local government area of Niger State capsized on its way to Yauri in Kebbi State. Reports say the boat conveying over 30 passengers from Gebe, Kasabo, and other waterfront on the Niger to Yauri Market capsized close to its destination due to heavy windstorm. Local divers have launched search and rescue operation shortly after the boat mishap, and the managing director of the National Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission, Mr. Abubakar Yelwa, who blames the incident on lack of adherence to safety measures, says that 7 persons were rescued alive, while 4 bodies have been recovered. And to the National Assembly, the House of Representatives is urging the Inspector General of Police to hasten the release of the 7 kidnapped corps members and 24 students of the Federal University Gusau, Zamfara State. But this was part of resolutions reached following consideration of a number of motions on security, which was raised during Tuesday's plenary. Our National Assembly correspondent, Terry Kumi, reports.
Members of the House of Representatives settled down to Tuesday's plenary after adjourning a week ago. The day is filled with matters of insecurity in the northwest region. While calling for the deployment of a special anti-kidnapping squad to Zamfara and other states, the House calls for the urgent release of the 7 kidnapped corps members and 24 students abducted from Federal University Gusau, Zamfara State.
Urge the Inspector General of Police, IGP and other security agencies to intensify efforts and deploy personnel and intelligence capability to secure the immediate and safe release of the 7 abducted corps members still in captivity.
Urge the IGP and their security agencies to intensify effort and deploy personnel to secure the immediate and safe release of 7 abducted corps members and 40 female students of Federal University Gusau who are still in captivity in Zamfara State.
The House also considers a motion alleging unlawful road blockage, extortion and harassment by security personnel on Lagos-Agbara-Badagry semi-highway.
The House resolves to urge the Nigerian Customs Service to enhance security on the Lagos-Agbara-Badagry semi-highway and ensure strict implementation of laws circulars and guidelines for mounting checkpoints. This should include the removal of illegal roadblocks and prevention of new ones.
Next, lawmakers make comments about the country's 63rd independence anniversary.
We only have ourselves as Nigerians with no diversity and go back to the former glory of unity, prosperity, and security, and go back to the drawing board where our forefathers worked from.
One of the challenges that faces us as a country, as a people, is the issue of security. And over the last 24 years of our democratic journey since 1999, we have had these challenges. I am using this unique opportunity to also call on the executive that political solution to issues of insecurity is a way to look at.
The House then observes a moment of silence in honor of the country's fallen heroes. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And now to the upper house, where the Senate has received a letter from the president seeking the confirmation of 3 more ministerial nominees. Senate President Godswill Akpabio read a letter from President Bola Tinubu requesting the confirmation of the nominees when the lawmakers resumed plenary today. The nominees are Mr. Balarabe Lawal from Kaduna State, Mrs. Jamila Ibrahim from Kwara State, and Mr. Ayodele Olawande from Ondo State. Meanwhile, the Senate also amended its standing orders to stop first-term senators from vying for the position of Senate President and Deputy Senate President.
Back from the string of holidays in the last week, senators settled down to work. They immediately go into a closed-door session to discuss matters not privy to the public. Nearly 3 hours later, the session ends and lawmakers attend to one of the matters of the day, which entails amending its standing orders to guide the election of its principal officers.
Aware that there are a number of issues that require further amendments to provide for the creation of additional committees of the Senate in response to emerging developments that will enhance rules of procedure for a sound legislative practice. Aware that these developments have made it imperative to further amend the standing orders of the Senate 2022 as amended, occasioned by the creation of additional Senate standing committees, and to have their functions and jurisdiction reflected in the standing orders of the Senate.
With the new amendment to the Senate's standing orders, first-term senators are now excluded from those qualified or eligible to contest for the position of presiding officers of the upper chamber. This action by the Senate is likely in response to the leadership tussle before the swearing-in of lawmakers in the 10th Senate a few months ago, when Senator Abdulaziz Yari, a first-term senator, contested against Senator Godswill Akpabio for the position of Senate President.
The ayes have it.
The Senate also amended its rules and created 9 additional standing committees. During the session, Senator Akpabio reads a letter from President Bola Tinubu requesting the confirmation of 3 additional ministerial nominees.
I am pleased to forward to the Senate 3 nominees: Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, and Mr. Ayodele Olawande for confirmation as ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
In August 2023, the Senate screened the first set of 48 ministerial nominees forwarded by President Tinubu and withheld the confirmation of 3 nominees, namely former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai, Mrs. Stella Okotete from Delta State, and Mr. Abubakar Danladi from Taraba State. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, we examine the economic growth plan of President Tinubu administration with regard to efforts to boost the supply of electricity to homes and businesses. Well, that's the moment. So stay with us. You're welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. Well, here's a reminder of our top stories. It's day of anguish in parts of the country as explosion at an illegal oil refining site in Niger State claims at least 18 lives. 4 bodies recovered after a boat mishap in River Niger, and church building collapses in Benue, killing 1 person. Senate receives letters from President Tinubu seeking confirmation of 3 new ministerial nominees, moves to stop first-term senators from vying for the position of Senate President and Deputy Senate President. Chicago State University releases the academic records of President Tinubu to the legal team of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to support his suit challenging President Tinubu's election. And 2 people killed and at least 5 others injured in a shooting at a luxury shopping center in the center of Bangkok, Thailand. The Chicago State University has finally released the academic records of the president to the legal team of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in the 2023 elections had approached a United States court for the Northern District of Illinois, seeking to compel the university to release President Tinubu's academic records. The move is meant to support Mr. Abubakar's suit challenging President Bola Tinubu's election in the February 25th poll. Justice Nancy Maldonado had given the university up until 12 noon on Monday to deliver the documents to Mr. Atiku after dismissing the president's objection in the judgment. The records include a cache of documents connected to President Tinubu's education at the institution and copies of certificates which redacted names issued to other persons about the same time when the Nigerian president is said to have finished from the school in 1979. As part of the drive to improve the supply of electricity to homes and businesses, the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, says President Tinubu administration will focus on off-grid power generation while also exploring renewable energy, predominantly solar. Mr. Adelabu, who spoke exclusively to Channels Television on several power-related issues, pledged that the 6 to 8 million meter gap in the sector will be plugged. In this special report, our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips, focuses on power in continuation of our series on the President's economic growth drive.
By November 2023, a few weeks from now, the Nigeria electricity sector will be a decade old post-privatization. In 2013, the Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, guided Nigeria through the transition from a completely public-owned power sector to private investors. The hope and set objectives were essentially to free the federal government from the funding encumbrances of the then PHCN, which succeeded the defunct Nigeria Electricity Power Authority, and have any investor with the financial fiber to come invest to set the electricity market into its full potential. That reform policy had a lot of ancillary documentation and direction to help grow the sector, and it also had timelines and milestones. Years have gone by and counting. Progress have been made, but not how many may have envisaged. In specific terms, while generating installed capacity stands at above 10,000 megawatts from where the journey started, the energy supplied to homes and businesses are still under 5,000 megawatts.
Usually before, we can recharge for like 1 month, but the same price we use for 1 month now has gone down to less than 2 weeks. So it's really not easy for me at all. And those of us in business using energy and all that.
For instance, electricity peaked at over 4,000 megawatts in February of 2014. There's been several oscillations, but suffice it to say that compared to the population growth at any time since independence, Nigeria is still hoping to do more in terms of supply. These issues, however, cannot be treated in isolation. Nigerians want more power supplied to them. Operators want payment for the products being demanded. call it cost-reflective tariff, or the argument by consumers to have more before they can pay more, the sector clearly needs a common ground.
When you bill the customers, you should be able to collect as much as possible. As it is today, we have less than 60% collection rate of billed electricity. So that's actually the first thing that we need to tackle. The issue of the meter gap is there. As at the last estimates, it is confirmed that between 6 million to 8.5 million meters is the gap that we have. So that is the first thing to address. And this will be addressed in a multilateral perspective, so that we're going to have various programs that will address reducing or completely eliminating this meter gap.
As soon as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took the saddle, he signed the Electricity Act 2023 into law. That law recognizes a major fundamental, which is to transport power matters from exclusive list to concurrent list. Essentially, states and even local governments in Nigeria can generate its own electricity. But are these arms of government ready?
We are going to have a collaboration with the Nigerian Governors Forum to encourage each of the states to pass into law their own state electricity bill. I know that a number of states have done that. Lagos State has done that. Ogun State has done that. Enugu State has done that. And we encourage other state governors to key into this initiative, ensure they have their own electricity bill so that they can actually administer electricity as a quasi-social service.
Forex, additional investment, energy theft, household meters, cost of electricity, gas supply are still areas of concern in tackling the challenges of the sector. But this government says it has an eye on those matters. The immediate past administration entered a government-to-government agreement with the German government to have Siemens provide support in developing a more reliable electricity supply in Nigeria. It is already 2023, and we asked the Honorable Minister, where are we?
Project under the Presidential Power Initiatives, PPI, is actually the importation of about 20 power substations and transformers, about 10 power stations and 10 power transformers and 10 mobile power stations. Those items are already arrived in Nigeria. They have been cleared from the port. We are at the installation stage. We're going to resume activities of that project and ensure that we accelerate the activities of the project because it has a deadline. It's still very much on course.
Experts advise that opportunities exist in the current metering gap if government continues to encourage local manufacturing. Opportunities also exist for the technological growth in meter manufacture, moving from mere prepaid meters to smart meters. Smart meters also mean energy theft can be tackled, leaving more energy to be available, paid for, and improved collection. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Now, joining us live from our Abuja studio to further examine this is an energy analyst, Mr. Olabode Shomi. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, power is central to driving the economic growth agenda of this government. And I'd like to begin from this point. Where would you say the Tinubu administration must start off from if it must address the challenges in this sector?
Okay, I think first and fundamentally, certain things need to be declared. There's always an assumption that there's a one way to solve the problem. Usually there's not, because there are multiple factors and multiple issues responsible for where we find ourselves. But if you ask me in terms of first steps, one of the things will be to listen to all stakeholders, which it appears that the minister is doing. It is also understandable that he is working on the meter gap as well as the collection losses, because all that comes to one key aspect of the issues in the power sector. Those are the collection losses. It needs to be understood that all the problems within the power sector can be summed up under what we call the ATC&C losses. That is the aggregate, technical, collection, and commercial losses. Again, that's aggregate, technical, collection, and commercial losses. The focus here now has been on the commercial losses, which basically means that even the services we are delivering, we are not able to collect it. So in terms of low-hanging fruits, the focus is very clear, and I think that's positive for the minister.
And investment in the sector has been challenged, really, due to what industry analysts attribute to low electricity rates or tariff. And it's been a major bone of contention. For you, how can we balance this debate, really, so it will work for both the consumers and those who are in business to make profit?
Okay, so first is that for a long time, Nigerians have actually enjoyed power more like a social service. And really, that perspective still lives on. And that is why many times when there's electricity theft, and when somebody, the average person, sees his neighbor bypassing the meter, they see the person as being smart. But what they don't really understand is that the so-called person that you call smart is actually cheating the system. And one way or the other, you may not pay for it, but somebody in the system has to pay for it because it's a system and government is not responsible for it. So that perspective of government business is nobody's business is part of the reason why, first of all, we have a culture that does not encourage a sustainable business model. Now, to the financing in question, every person that invests, even if it is a grant, they invest because they expect that there will be some kind of progress or some kind of recovery. Now, if the business is so sustainable, which is what happens when there is so much theft, there is reluctance for anybody to invest. So the challenge really is for those within the distribution sector, those within transmission, to come up with a business plan that will say that if we invest $1 million or we invest $100 million, it will come out profitable. And that is where it's a responsibility of all of us. Because it's not just the government, it's not just the people in the power sector, it's all of us that contribute to make it a reality what it is. So yes, speaking to basics, whoever is going to look for funding needs to have its fundamentals in place. It needs to have a business plan that is workable and that can convince the investor.
Now, while we can talk about our immediate challenges and the solutions to them, the truth is this has been on for decades. So why do you think Nigeria has been unable, it will seem, to overcome issues around power supply after so many years? And how can we leapfrog on this?
Well, the answer is simple. So if a student failed WAEC, and rather than preparing for the next WAEC, he starts to complain, starts to talk about the bad teacher, starts to talk about the vigilator, starts to talk about the exam, and does not spend time practicing his mathematics or chemistry or whatever he needs to pass, the child will continue to fail. One of the reasons why the power sector issues remain is that we have not done a proper analysis and focus on the real issues. I mean, when you talk to the average person on the street and say, see, look, power theft causes this, you say you are speaking English. What I just want is power. By that place, deflecting his own responsibility to ensure that the system is kept clean. And that applies everywhere. So, and you also have people in the industry, because it is a technical industry, they just explain away things. They explain using technical terms that people don't look at. So the real issues is that the things that we need to address to solve the problem, we don't focus on it. We focus on the politics, we focus on all other things except the real issues. So it is not magic that there's no progress. And for there to be progress, we just have to face the real issues. The discourse needs to be responsible and held accountable. The transmission company of Nigeria needs to be questioned. The generation companies need to be audited, and a lot of things need to be done. The same thing with the regulator. So everybody, you need to keep their feet to the fire, and that is the way there will be progress. But for us to expect some kind of magic, some kind of miracle that will suddenly bring power, it doesn't work that way. It is a system. Every single part of the system must work. And every part of the system that is not functional, that is not effective, needs to be questioned. Searchlight needs to be put on it. And gradually, we will continue to make progress until we reach where we should be. But whether that will happen in 1 month or 6 months, I sincerely doubt.
Clearly, this is a major issue, but I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Olabode Showumi, energy analyst. Thank you so much for insights which you have provided on the News at 10.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine.
Done with our Abuja studio just yet. For more on the News at 10, let's head over to the the studio where Linda Akiwe is sitting by. Good evening, Linda.
Good evening, Ayotunde. Now, some relief, albeit temporary, has come for the country following the decision by the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress to suspend their planned nationwide strike for 1 month. This came after they reached an agreement with the federal government's delegation on some measures following the removal of fuel subsidy. A key part of the agreement will ensure that all federal government workers get a 35,000 naira wage increase from the month of September till a new national minimum wage is signed into law. After the meeting that lasted till almost midnight on Monday, the Minister of Labour and Employment read out the agreement.
The federal government grants a wage award of 35,000 naira only to all federal government workers, beginning from the month of September, pending when a new minimum wage is expected to have been signed into law. 2. A minimum wage committee shall be inaugurated within 1 month from the date of this agreement. 3. Federal government suspends collection of value-added tax, VAT, on diesel for 6 months beginning from October 2023. The NLC and the TUC accept to suspend for 30 days the planned indefinite nationwide strike scheduled to begin Tuesday, the 3rd of October 2023. And 15. This memorandum shall be filed with the relevant court of competent jurisdiction within 1 week as consent judgment by the federal government.
The labour unions say the suspension of industrial action is conditional and would last for 30 days, during which labour will monitor the implementation of the agreement.
We have a signed agreement. The government will act in utmost good faith. We signed this agreement with the belief that every single item in this agreement are implementable. Every single item in this agreement, we are extremely serious about them, and we wish to also reiterate that we are expecting 100% implementation and not a 99% in any way.
Some governors are paying 20, some are paying 10 to mitigate this already. So it is something that affects everybody. In some private sector companies, they are taking some measures. I can remember 1 or 2 banks that have equally implemented about 100%. We are saying whether it will affect them or not. It will.
To health issues, a total of 13,204 suspected cases of diphtheria disease have been reported, out of which 8,406 cases have been confirmed in 114 local government areas in 19 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. Now, this is according to the National Diphtheria Response Task Team, chaired by the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shaibu, and the Director General of the National Center for Disease and Control, Dr. Diphtheria Adefita. The team says Kano State still has the highest burden with 7,188 confirmed cases. Our correspondent Victoria Longjohn reports.
It's the first meeting of the National Diphtheria Rapid Response Team and development partners since its inauguration on September 14, 2023 by the Minister of Health, Dr. Ali Pate. This gathering is to examine response efforts of the team since the upsurge of the diphtheria outbreak in May-June this year. According to the co-chair of the team, Dr. Diphtheria Adefita, a third of all confirmed cases affected children between 1 to 14 years. He blamed it on poor vaccination uptake.
Most of the cases, about a third of all confirmed cases, are in the age group 5 to 9 years old, and this is also closely followed by those that are 10 to 14 years. And then we have adults that are 20 and above, who represent 15% of the cases. What this indicates is that we are now seeing, for want of a better description, the return on investment of historical poor vaccination coverage or poor vaccination uptake by people when they were babies.
Kano, as the focus of this outbreak, has been at the forefront of our vaccination efforts. Working with the state government, we implemented rounds 1 and 2 of the vaccination campaign in 5 high-burden local government areas in February and April this year. As of September 20th of September this year, we commenced the phase 2 round 1 diphtheria outbreak response in 7 of the high-burden states. Yobe began on September 23, followed by Kano on September 30th. Bauchi, Borno, Jigawa, Kaduna, and Katsina are poised to commence on October 7th this year.
The development partners here pledge their support towards building systems that will help curb the spread of diphtheria and prevent a recurrence.
As I've observed the last few weeks, there isn't any shortage of hard work that we're seeing from the national, setting the example all the way down to the state, the multi-lab partners, other local and private NGOs on the ground. I personally have been inspired and encouraged by the commitment that has been demonstrated. And because of this, I am hopeful that we will come out of this soon.
The team says plans are ongoing to liaise with governors of affected states to adopt and enforce non-pharmaceutical methods like the use of face masks to slow the progress of the outbreak, which is an airborne disease. Victoria Longjohn, Channels Television News.
In other stories, Governor Alex Otti appears set to scale up the industrial development of Abia State through an industrial and innovation park to be constructed by the state government. In line with this, Governor Otti has performed the foundation laying ceremony for the project, which will cover 1,000 hectares of land in Owaza community in Ukwa West local government area of the state. The governor says his administration's vision is to responsibly harness the abundant oil and gas reserves within Ukwa for the economic development of the host communities and the entire state.
You shall start seeing evidence of serious commitment on the part of government and the concerned stakeholders. This project is purely an economic endeavor, and I shall do everything within my power to insulate it from the distractions of politics. AIIP is designed to be largely autonomous, with government only acting to provide regulations and see that the terms of engagements as agreed by all partners are respected. It is a new dawn in Okwaland in particular, and Abia State in general. What you are witnessing today and what you shall see in the days to come offers a glimpse into our program for industrial revolution in the state.
And that's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Linda. Hello and welcome to Business News. We're starting off on a positive note where business activities in Nigeria improved last month, and that's the first time since May this year. Well, this is coming after analysts projected a further decline due to the impact of rising inflationary pressure caused by removal of petrol subsidy and, of course, the forex harmonization policy, which was implemented in the second quarter of this year. According to the latest Purchasing Managers Index report, which was released by leading financial institution Stanbic IBTC, the PMI reading rebounded to 51.1 in the month of September, up from 50.2 in the month of August, as new orders increased for the 6th month running. At the same time, the level of output returned to growth after slight reduction in the month of August, as 3 of the 4 monitored sectors all saw output expand, while the manufacturing sector declined. Further analysis of that report shows the employment increased slightly for the 5th consecutive month as companies continued to increase their hirings, particularly in the agriculture and services sector. At the same time, Nigerian companies recorded a rise in new export, which grew at the fastest expansion rate in over 1 year. New orders increased for the 6th month, The rate of growth in purchasing activity eased for the fourth consecutive month, while overall input costs continued to increase amid inflationary pressure. Meanwhile, Stanbic IBTC PMI report mentions that confidence outlook for business activities for next year remain unchanged for the month of September as its weakest in the survey's history. Global air cargo demand increased by 1.5% year-on-year in the month of August, and that's the first annual growth since February last year. According to latest report, which was released by International Air Transport Association, that demand, which is measured by cargo ton kilometers, however, remains 1.3% lower than their pre-pandemic level in the year 2019. At the same time, air cargo capacity, measured in available cargo ton kilometers, was up 12.2% year-on-year and 3.9% higher than the level in 2019. Meanwhile, IATA warns if global trade continues to weaken, then air cargo demand may not significantly improve in the coming months. From there, we head straight to the domestic market, which saw the new month starting after the Independence Day holiday with 212.81 billion naira gained at the close of trade today. Let's hear the details from Eni John Mekwa.
Thank you so much, Anne. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first trading week in the last quarter of 2023. And the market starts with a negative market breadth where 24 stocks gained and 27 declined. That's how this final quarter is beginning. But the good thing is that the all-share index is in the green, 0.59%. And yes, we are growing on our 66,770.97. The market cap is not yet buck at 37, but is at 36.544 trillion naira. Now, the most liquid counter, that's the banking, has recovered because of the three top trades of the day. There you have it, the three top trades. GT Co, Access Co, and Fidelity Bank. This is my most favorite. They led the top trades for today. Now let's look at the sectors. We see oil and gas has remained unchanged, and that's in spite of that gain, 75 kobo gain on O&O. So it's unchanged, but it's positively unchanged. Consumer goods has NASCON and the Nigerian breweries leading it. And then we see that it dropped profit taking right there, 0.41%. And then, of course, we have those top trades leading the banking counter at the close of a trade. So we have a good trade starting this quarter. Can this be a sign that it's going to be a green quarter? We will wait and see. That's the stock market report, and the bull is back.
That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Coyote.
Well, thank you, Anne. Thai police have in their custody a 14-year-old boy suspected of being behind the shooting at the Siam Paragon Shopping Center, which is an upmarket destination in Bangkok. The boy attends a school not far from the mall. It is still unclear why he carried out the attack. 3 people were initially said to have been killed, but later authorities updated the figure to 2. Here's Simon Pusey with more of this and other international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. At least 3 people have been killed in a shooting at a luxury shopping centre in the centre of Bangkok. A 14-year-old suspect has been arrested, but his motive remains unknown. 4 other people were injured, and witnesses have reported hiding inside shops and bathrooms in the Siam Paragon Mall. 1 foreigner is among the injured. The Thai Prime Minister says police arrived at the scene quickly and has sent his deepest condolences to the victims and their families. Police in the Indian capital, Delhi, have raided the homes of several prominent journalists and authors in connection with an investigation into the funding of the news website NewsClick. Police have seized mobile phones and laptops of those they raided on Tuesday morning. Officials are reportedly investigating allegations that NewsClick got illegal funds from China, a charge it denies. Critics say the move is an intentional attack on press freedom. The main opposition leader in the Seychelles, Patrick Hermione, has been charged with witchcraft, along with 7 others. Police say the case is related to the discovery of 2 bodies exhumed from a cemetery on the island of Mahe. He has denied the charges, telling local media that his prosecution is a political show to taint his image. Mr. Hermione plans to run in the 2025 presidential election under the banner of the United Seychelles Party. An international committee of the Red Cross team has been combing the streets with megaphones, seeking stranded residents in the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh. Only a few hundred people remain behind, including the sick, disabled and elderly, an ICRC official said, describing the empty streets as surreal. Azerbaijani forces took control of the enclave on its territory, populated by ethnic Armenians, triggering an exodus of more than 100,000 Armenians. The Nobel Peace Prize-winning gynecologist Dr. Denis Mukwege has announced that he will be running for Democratic Republic of Congo's presidency. Mr. Mukwege, who won the award in 2018 for his nearly 2-decade fight against sexual violence, addressed a crowd of jubilant supporters in Kinshasa. Mukwege's speech was heavy on criticism over the current regime, led by President Felix Tshisekedi, though offered little in the way of specific policy proposals. The 68-year-old doctor said he would give details of his program later. Scientists Pierre Agostini, Ferenc Krauss and Anne Le Huillet have been jointly awarded the 2023 Nobel Prize in Physics for using pulses of light to study the behavior of electrons.
For experimental methods that generate attosecond pulses of light for the study of electron dynamics in matter.
The award-giving body said the work by the trio had given humanity new tools for exploring the world of electrons inside atoms. The prize, which was raised this year to around $1 million, is awarded by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences.
So the prize this year is about very short pulses of radiation at the time scale of 1 attosecond. So an attosecond is very, very small. It's hard to imagine, but most people are familiar with the concept of a billion. So if you take a second and you divide it into a billion, and then you take one of those things and divide it a billion times again, you get 10 to the minus 18, or 1 attosecond. And these short pulses of light are interesting to study how electrons move around in atoms, for example, when they form a chemical bond or something like that.
And record numbers of drinkers have flocked to the Terencijnwijs fairground at the famous Oktoberfest festival, despite the soaring cost of beer. It's the final day of the famous annual celebration, which is claimed to be the biggest and rowdiest beer festival in the world, and one that goes back more than 200 years. Some critics have questioned the high prices of beer this year, but that didn't stop those attending, organisers saying they've seen people in record numbers. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The challenge of who will be crowned the 2023 National Chess Champion is on at the 3rd edition of the Nigerian National Chess Championship begins at the Orchid Lekki Club in Lagos. To kickstart this year's championship, the Nigerian Chess Federation, for the first time, has inducted 7 individuals who are regarded as legends of the game, including former national champions, into the Nigeria Chess Hall of Fame at the opening ceremony.
For the 3rd successive year, the Orchid Lekki Chess Club, in partnership with the Nigerian Chess Federation, is hosting the country's biggest chess event that produces national champions in the men and women categories.
The event can be a bit more dynamic.
Interestingly, this year's opening ceremony is taking a new twist, 7 personalities who are regarded as legends of the game and former national chess champions are being inducted into the Nigerian Hall of Fame. They include the founder of the Nigerian Chess Federation, Dr. Silvanus Ibigwe, a 2-time minister and national chess master, Vice Admiral Jibrila Ayinla, retired, former national junior champion Emmanuel Omoku, FIDE Master of Chess Fumilayo Augusto, among others, and 2 organizations are the pioneer inductees.
It means a lot to us that the flame we lit so many 50, 60 years ago is still burning brightly and even burning brighter. Chess has now, grown, in leaps and bounds, and it's just going to take a little more to produce grandmasters for Nigeria.
I have worked hard to preach chess gospel all over the country from the 70s. And today you can see what's happening. Chess is everywhere, and the tournaments are going, both nationally and internationally. So it is a great honor.
The Nigerian Chess Federation is excited with the achievement recorded with the Chess Championship.
We cannot leave everything to government. Funding has been tough, but at least we have to look inward. Consistently, we have been, in the past when I was president, we've had 3 gold medals in All Africa Games, 3 gold medals in All Africa Games. About 3 All Africa Games, we had three gold medals. So we've been consistent on that. That is why we are a category A sport.
This year's edition rounds off on October the 9th, as 12 top players will compete for the country's biggest chess title, while the competition is also open to chess lovers in the Blitz tournament, the open section and junior category.
And our sports news is back to you, Kaide.
Chris, and the main news again. Explosion rocked an illegal oil refining site in Rivers State today, where at least 18 people lost their lives. Meanwhile, 4 bodies were recovered after a boat mishap on the River Niger, just as a church building collapsed in Benue State, killing 1 person. But that's the news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Coyote Okikilu. Good night.